everybody. It is Penny, and I'm back with one of my graduates who just has an amazing story of going from corporate to hypnosis, back to corporate, back to hypnosis, and what that journey has looked like for her, because I know it is going to resonate with a lot of you. She is a heart led soul. She is soft, but at the same time, she is powerful. Her name is Sangeetha Nagarjunan, and you're in Chennai, India, correct? At this time,
Yes,
right? I
Penny.
know you've moved a bit. There have been a lot of life changes since you became a hypnotist. I just want to say thank you for coming on to do this interview, because you have had a journey that is not uncommon for people who are healers, light workers, hypnotists, when you're really following this as a passion, not as an add-on to a clinical practice or something like that. First of all, I would love for you to introduce yourself just a little bit more, and then take me back to before you found hypnosis, and just what a normal week in your life looked like.
Sure. Penny, firstly, I am immensely grateful and completely enjoy to have the space with you. I just have so much love for you. Thank you. Grateful to be here. As I say, I'm a soul sister. So, like Penny said, I'm from Chennai. I currently am in Chennai. I've moved across a bit in the last few years. And Penny rightfully said, ever since I got into hypnosis and I started my transformational journey, from a background perspective, I have largely been in India, moved around a bit, but predominantly in India. I have close to 25 years of experience working in the corporate industry. And I've held very flamboyant senior roles, exec level roles, if I might say, which would make a lot of people happy. And I used to love my work a lot because I used to love solving problems. I used to be an avid overthinker because every time I got promoted, it was for my overthinking and over analytical capabilities. And that became a part of my identity, which I used to be so proud of. In fact, I had a lot of speakers quote me and say, look at this girl, how far she's come in 25 years and how far in a corporate lineage, right? So that was me. Oh, close to, I think, 8 or 9 years back, or 7 or 8 years back, right? So somewhere through my corporate journey, and I'll probably touch upon what a day typically looked like before I touch upon where I got into hypnosis. I went through quite an adventurous, I would say, events in life. I used to be a single mom. I got married again, and then I had children who at an age gap of 12 years, which is quite uncommon in this part of the world. Somebody navigating that and somebody going through this side of a personal change, it's quite uncommon. And a late mom in India is not considered common in the generation that I belong to. So I used to almost be labeled a rebel without a cause for most things. And my life sort of mirrored it in so many. I used to rebel everything, ask why nots, and my life pretty much mirrored it to me. Why not everywhere, right? So what a day would typically look like is get up, put in close to 18 to 19 hours of work. So if I did 12, it was a thin day.
Wow.
And it would probably be 8 to 9 hours, 10 hours at work and come back home and not be, I mean, really try to be on my phone or my laptop. And the side story is in fact, I've logged into work in a traffic signal in India. I know anywhere else I would have been behind bars. Don't quote me out. I know this is being recorded, but that's how crazy I was because I was chasing the titles. I was chasing what looked like it was peace and calm for me. And I was not connected to myself until I actually headed to a car crash. And then life held me a mirror. It held me a mirror, but I still went back to another role in corporate. I quit that organization and I moved. But something told me something was not okay with what I was trying to be. It felt like I was in misalignment. I was not really where my calling was. And that's when, no coincidences, Penny and I were in a beloved brother Jim Fordon's group. And that's where hypnosis, and I don't know if I've shared this with you, Penny, while we get into Jim Fordon's group piece, my grandfather was a hypnotherapist. And I didn't know about this for years. Okay. I didn't know about this for years until I actually became a hypnotist. So I'll come to that in a bit, but I think talking about that is important because somewhere things just lead to somewhere else, I think. So in Jim Fordon's group, he was one of the leading subconscious transformational coaches, and it's been life changing for me. And that's when I met Penny. And obviously, I was completely misaligned. Like I said, overthinker, over analytical. I was going through relationship issues. I was challenging it myself if I was a good mom. I was self critical. And the deepest of it was I lacked self love completely. So as I was going through that journey, I felt like it's all about me. I'm not doing enough again because that's all I knew. What more did I have to do to get better? And Jim held a mirror. And that's when it felt like I needed to get deeper because I went through the program and it still felt like there were deeper things to unearth and meanings and beliefs and stories which needed work. I had certain habits I wanted to get past. And that's when I reached out to Penny. Because while the layers were peeling, there were deeper layers which I knew needed peeling. And I reached Penny and asked then was how do I get past a few habits which were sort of completely holding me back from stepping into my power. And that's when I met Penny. And I started working with Penny. I did deep work with Penny in her very, very special one to one container. And I would never forget because that was a life changing experience. I didn't know what was inside me. If I had to explain it to a child, I didn't know what was inside me, which was holding me back. And today we do it so easily as hypnotists and hypnotherapists, right? But imagine the first time I sat for meditation, I'm like, seriously? Is this what? Is this what's driving my life? Yeah, go on, Penny. You're
Theological.
coming.
It's theological, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. What led to you to considering actually training? Most people who are hypnotists or hypnotherapists generally have experienced some profound shift in their life from it. But I'm curious, were those two things connected? If they weren't, then what led you down the path?
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for asking me this. So, the level of change working with Penny, what brought to me was huge evidence for me for what was possible to shine the light. And I say this humbly. I don't know, I don't have to be so humble about this, but I say this humbly because it showed me what was truly possible, which I don't think any written manuscripts or any written scripts or anything, because this is so led business. When I say it's so led, it's intuitive. This is more than just saying a few things continually, working in the space of when someone says this, you respond to this, and then you shift the frame. It's more than the word magic. It's actually working with integrity with a person's soul and life and helping them unearth what's truly possible. And imagine if even 10% of this world could have that, how much more of a beautiful life, an easy life would it be? And that's where it started off for me. And I was like, I can't not be a hypnotist. And this is not just a toolkit for me.
Yeah. So just before we take a moment further, you and I are 11 and a half hours apart. So if I remember correctly, you were working
Yeah,
when we had the training.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
you could have trained with anyone around the world. And this isn't about me. This isn't about, I mean, we'll get to, what stood out about the training if you want to, but
Sure.
you could have picked anywhere. Was it the experience that you had in the one-on-one that was like it's worth it to me to stay awake at night for 7 days all night to do this? I mean, because a lot of people, their logic brain kicks in and they go the path of least resistance.
Absolutely. Sure. So the timing thing in the 3D world can sometimes be hard. But you know what? The irony is, I would find it hard to sit up for corporate calls in the middle of the night. And I would say, I can't show up. It's hard. I would say that. But clearly, what happened here was the resonance was very high with the kind of integrity that, and I would say this with or without sitting with Penny on a call, how if I had 4 sessions as part of my immersion with Penny, if when I was her client, the way I had started, Penny would actually get on a walkthrough with me and check in on me all heart and give me that extra time if I needed to help unpick and unblock. And I'm not saying Penny's time is at everybody's disposal, but the integrity with which somebody shows up is so critical when we've almost opened our life out to them. And that to me was very important because one is to go from feeling unstuck to stuck or whatever the experience is. But the other is the journey of how easy it became and how it was becoming visible. So for me, it was a no brainer. And I had I mean, just by virtue of getting curious about hypnosis, I had a couple of other practitioners and trainers which came up, but I didn't have resonance with them because the energy mattered to me, and I was not seeing that energy. It all seemed like I don't think it was a chat GPT generation 5 years or 6 years back, but it felt like it was just about scripts and talking. And there were tall claims which I wasn't sure I was resonating with, but I think the shifts that I had were taller. So to me, the time zone thing did not quite hit me very hard. It needed some planning, it needed some pre-work. Penny gave ample time, the material arrived ahead of time. I had time to pre-work, I had time to study, and Penny and her team were always there to support us wherever we were from. So for me, it was a no-brainer. And as we sort of navigated through the course, it became quite evident that I mean, I was all in. I was all in.
Can you describe the moment where you realized you were all in?
Sure,
Was there a
sure.
specific moment?
Absolutely. So before the training, Penny, is that okay? Yeah, okay. So I had come out of a transformational program and the changes were big. The changes were big. And it was that point in time when I'd also realized my spiritual path. I realized I need to live a life of impeccability. And somewhere it's like when the student is ready, the teacher arrives. So that happened to me with my shaman, my Yaki warrior, and with Penny, I should say, because the layers were peeling, the light was landing, but there was an urgency with which I had to shed faster. And it automatically moved in to Penny's world for me because I just knew the change was going to be there. It was just very, very fast alignment for me. And as I started working with Don Javier, and that was when my entire work with Penny also started. So it was like it just coincided perfectly. And if I could just talk about an incident that happened thereafter, which only strengthened I wasn't looking for evidence, but it just kept coming up, right? So over one of our sessions much later, Penny took me to a point in time. I was playing the client for Penny in one of another alumni training groups. And
Well,
Penny
I'm
basically,
gonna pause you for
yeah,
just a moment because I know where you're going.
yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah,
You
yeah,
were
sure.
actually in a practice session
Yeah,
with
yeah, yeah, yeah.
another student, and I was popping between rooms mentoring. I just want to,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
a
yeah.
huge,
Thank you. And it always touches my heart, that one session, because that's the deepest in this 3D world that anybody has gone, right? With me. So Penny has this amazing community, and the setup is in a way that because I was an alumni, I Penny sort of is generous enough to just let us come into the next, I think the next cohort, Penny, correct? And almost like a refresher, right? Penny gives us all the resources and support and mechanisms to set the business up and advise on how we need to get past this and scripts and modus operandi and everything that can go right and wrong and get us in front of the new students, and we practice with them, right? So I was sitting there and it was the middle of the night in India, but there's no way I wouldn't show up, at least for a bit. And I go in there, and as we were going over our session, and I pretty much went to a point in time when I had just made a choice to be born in this world. And if anybody listening to this or hearing this is realizes that it is all about woo woo and it's real for us. So to get to that point in time and to know why I chose to be here. And that was a moment of, it's like you just crossed that line, and that line is just divinity in its purest. So to and I was not curious for curiosity's sake. It just headed there, and it headed there, and to sort of hold my hand there and to help me navigate that. Yeah, Penny, you were coming in.
Yeah. Yeah, I just want to kind of frame it up for people. So in the training, in practice sessions, we start with a basic foundation and we layer on and layer on. And so the exercise they were doing was working with their practice partner, layering on, and they were connecting with happy feelings, good feelings, joyful feelings. And then they were allowing the individual to connect with that feeling and follow it back to a much earlier time they felt that way. So essentially, what happened is she was in this frequency of joy and happiness. And when her practice partner suggested that she go back to a much earlier time she felt that way, she was in a state of pure expansion. And in that moment, I stepped in and took over, because when someone can have a moment like that, and if they're open to experiencing it, which I knew Sangeetha was, but if not, I would ask a student, are you open to exploring this? And if they said yes, we would do it. And I just asked some simple questions. I do these one-on-one with clients. They're called soul connection sessions, where we spend an hour or more here, but it was just a few minutes.
Yeah,
It was just a
absolutely.
few minutes that you were there. I asked a few questions, and it was all meant to be.
Yeah, completely.
It was all meant to be. So what happened for you after that experience?
After that session, it pretty much held more evidence to me in my life that it was time. It was time. I knew I had to hold my light. I had to hold the torch much earlier. And life happens to everybody. Circumstances happen, parenting, shifting cities, everything happens. But you always have a choice. You where you are because of the choices you make. You can be spiritual, non-spiritual. You could be American. You could be Indian. You could be Muslim, Indian, Hindu, whatever. But you have a choice, and all of us have. We're all unique. We all have a path, and we have a choice to take that path, shine a light or not. And when life presents evidences like this, like the session I had, it's a reminder. And sometimes it's like a punch in your face, and sometimes it's as beautiful as what I experienced. So it was evidence for me, it was data for me to embrace this gift and to take steps closer. And it's quite timely because now I've with a lot of gratitude walked out of my corporate role, and I am and I'll touch upon it when Penny wants me to, but that was the moment when I knew it is time to get out of this and get into my path completely, whatever that would look like, and it would all be fine in the right most manner. So that was a very, very evident moment. And I'm very grateful for that moment every day of my life, actually, Penny. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was it like first starting to see clients? Like when you first finished the training? I mean,
Sure.
how did that feel to go out and actually act on what you learned?
Sure. It's very interesting because I started with some friends. I started with some friends, and this was working with. So there were two things that could be done. One, with the community that we have at Penny, we can always go in and talk to our women in the community, and a few men, I think, and ask for practice sessions. So that was a possibility. And the other was basically because you're fully equipped as you walk out of the training. You have everything, and you don't need much to get started because the training itself is by practice. It's not like you've got to come out, practice, and then learn. You're already doing a couple of practice sessions with the rest of the people training with you and with the alumni from earlier, right? And with Penny. So you've already attempted a few, and to get to a paid client or for practice, and like we say, don't do it for free, but then if you truly need it to, you always do it to the community. Yeah, and there's always reciprocity, and I need that you can practice there, but then you come and if you're going to do it out. So first was to sensitize people about hypnosis, because where I come from, hypnosis has a very different meaning. It's all projected differently in the media. And I'm sure if you've been following Penny for any point in time, Penny has enough that gets covered of it, and I have some that I speak about too. So firstly, getting people on board. So I was looking for some trusted people who will attempt. So that's where I started, and I started seeing results. I wish I'd done more then, but then I started seeing when if somebody reached out to me for, oh, they were hiding at work and they were not able to speak up in meetings because I was working with corporate employees. Like they were my community. I mean, guess what? 18 hours a day, they were my community, right? So, but they didn't just get unstuck or they didn't just get past that belief. They saw much more opening up. And it was revealing for me also, like, what the hell's happening? They're seeing so much more. And they were coming back with it's really beautiful, right? So, sorry, Penny, you were coming in.
Now, it so describe to that a little bit more because I talk about it in class, how that
Mhm.
when you go to the foundation, the root of the problem, people come in with a symptom, but they don't realize that that becomes the lens of their perception and how they interact in other areas of their life.
Sure. I'd probably bring it in with an example, Penny. So I had somebody come in, and this was one of the earlier few. And this was a guy in India. It was my colleague in India. And he came in because he felt like he was hiding at work and he was not showing up at work. And he was not close to hypnosis. He didn't come up with baggage, but he was like, what's the harm in trying? So what's the harm in trying? I was like, okay, sure, let's try. So we went into age regression and the multiple ways. And today, if I did it, I'd probably use conversational hypnotherapy. At that point in time, it was into age regression. And we went to a point in time where I think he was 4 or 5, and there was a certain circumstance, and he attributed a meaning to it. And he attributed a meaning to it. And that showed up in a certain manner. And his brain and his mind were constantly only allowing him to perceive it that way with what was coming up. So to him, this was about I'm not speaking up in larger forums because the meaning that I had handed to me by my dad was you don't speak in large groups. You're expected to show up in a certain way. And he was clueless that this was driving the behavior. And when this opened up, it was revealing for him and me. And I was like, whoa, this is the power of this work, right? And with every client, it's revealing. So, and then he started seeing he was a temperamental man. He had anger issues because he loved himself less because he wasn't able to perform. So that's also shifted. And this was not something for which he came to me for. He didn't come to me for anger remedy, right? He didn't come, and I didn't have to do forgiveness work with him, which also we learn as part of Penny's training. I didn't have to do that because he actually shifted in 2 sessions. And I put him through the test and he was fine. And we just had to sort of go through the recognitions and all of that. So the point here is went back with much more than I don't know if I could say than he ever dreamed of, right? But actually life opened up for him. And what he did after that was his choice. He went and did some great things. But that is I mean, you come with a symptom and you actually solve multiple problems, which you would probably do. And if I may say this, you'd probably spend hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to do it, and you will for sure not pluck out the actual cause and redefine the meaning to that and get past it and clear your blocks and hooks, right? So that was those initial sessions were very revealing. I would go in with I would be a little nervous because it was new for me, but I don't think I stopped. I wish I'd done more earlier, but that's been my experience. And every client is a blessing because every time you don't know what the results are going to be because you're not projecting on your clients, you're just there.
I think it's so beautiful that you say that you're not projecting on your clients because I show you a way that everything comes out of them, that
Absolutely.
you're giving back to them. You went back to corporate. You'd
Yes, I
stepped
did.
out for a little while and you went back. And I think that for a lot of people, that going back generally tends to be around finances, and you don't have to share around that if that was the case. But what happened when you went back to corporate? How did that affect you knowing that this was your path?
Sure, sure. So I was working for a very large bank, and then the strategy sort of changed. And me being me, I chose to move to the mountains for 2.5 months. I was at the Himalayas for 2.5 months, and I took my son along, and we were there. It was beautiful, and I was reflecting what I needed to do, and I actually surrendered to the divine. I said, whatever comes my way, I'm going to take it now. Because obviously life is lifing. I had to consider finances. I wasn't going through insecurities, but I was still a planner. I was getting past my overthinking disease, remember? So
Yeah.
I was still there, and we were sort of going through some, I don't know if I could say we were a young family, but I have a little boy. So life was sort of around him. And parenting also has gone through its own experience with my learning and experiences with hypnosis, right? Because there is a lot of spirituality and intuitiveness that Penny brings in and I bring in by virtue of the shaman we work with and for what we are for, right? So I sort of said, okay, I'm surrendering to this. And then an opportunity lands. And I didn't seek it, but it was like it came to me. And I'm like, I don't know if I should say no. And I said, let's see what happens. And that's when I took it on. I felt aligned going in, but I didn't feel aligned staying in,
It
right?
was just
If I
what
may
you
say
needed
that.
in the moment. It was just
Yeah,
what you needed in the
exactly.
moment.
Yeah. And I just reacted to it and I said, okay. So I didn't feel aligned staying in. And so somewhere it brought me back to where I had to be, which was Chennai. Decided that I was done. And not because I did not like it, but because I wanted to get to my path. The decision, and anybody who meets me now says, must have been a very hard decision. You walked away from it when you had everything. And I'm like, no, I walked away from it because I already had everything. And I had to choose what I came in for. And it was not a hard choice at all. So I did
Yeah.
feel misaligned, but I didn't get angry staying in corporate because I knew I had chosen.
Yeah.
So when I went back, I knew I had made the choice. It was not like somebody beat me up to do it. I had chosen. So I needed to be in integrity. And if I decided to walk out, I had to do it with integrity too. So even handling misalignment became a choice with kindness, which I learned through this path. Then if that's what you were looking for, then
Yeah. So what where do you see yourself going with hypnosis now? What are you doing with it now?
a lot of things in the last couple of years now, Penny. And I'm learning to run a business. I say that because it was in the sidelines, but it didn't stop me from meeting my over 100 clients. I did all that I had to with every bit of time that I created for this because I had to be this. So right now, I am working with corporate employees who are either stuck or they're stagnated or they're looking for to actually get out of feeling stuck and they want to create greatness in their lives. And it could look like promotion, it could look like money, it could look like balance, it could look like being connected with themselves, right? But I work with this community because I know this community needs the light. This community is actually suffocated and overworked, and they need to just be held the torch and said, dude, wake up, right? And I know that's our path. And so this is the community that I want to work with at this point in time. And if I'm guided differently, I will move. And with and conversational hypnotherapy is another fantastic vehicle. It was intriguing for me initially on how I was going to do it, but again, Penny's training on that is also amazing. And we've done a lot of practice sessions on that. And I think I'm sort of mastering the craft slowly and steadily. And my experiences with my corporate clients now with hypnosis too, because people walk in and say, I am unable to embrace authority. I don't know how to deal with it. And they're able to get past that in one session. And that's not
Yeah.
something any coaching can get them out of. So there's not a coaching versus hypnosis thing, but it's starting to show evidence is building up slowly and steadily.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's important though to clarify 2 points. You said it's not a coaches versus hypnosing, but it is a coaching versus hypnosing.
Yeah.
Hypnosing. Coaching versus hypnosing. Coaching versus hypnosis.
Hypnosis, yeah.
It's 11 o'clock in the morning. I should not be slurring my words already. Um, Hibiscus tea does not do that. But coaching and therapy goes surface level. You mentioned earlier people could spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. There was a gentleman who tracked hypnosis versus talk therapy many decades ago, and he found that for anxiety, an average of 6 sessions of hypnosis would get a 95% result. 600 sessions of talk therapy gave an average 38% result. So, what do I mean by result? A 38% resolution of the symptoms versus 95% had resolution of the symptoms. And so, if you look at the cost of a therapy session versus the cost of a hypnosis session, because most people price their sessions on
Yeah,
parity
absolutely.
average cost of a therapy session, that's $120,000 to get only a 38% chance of resolving your issue. So that's really
No
huge.
brainer. Yeah.
And the other thing, you touched on the conversational hypnosis. I look as conversational hypnosis as the whipped cream or the cherry on top, because when you finish the intensive training, at the end of the day, did I come to you and say, okay, if you want to see clients dealing with X, Y, and Z, here's your next step?
So you knew what was absolutely possible for every kind. Yeah. So you could meet, so you could deal with smokers, you could deal with people who had health conditions, and I'm forgetting the name of the book, but then your book, Penny, your
Breaking
book.
the fibro code. Yeah,
Yes.
fibromyalgia.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a gift. So anybody who's listening to this, go get the book. It's a no-brainer. You don't have to, I mean, read it and you will know why you will get trained. Don't get trained and then read it. Read it to know why you want to be a hypnotist or hypnotherapist. And obviously that there's much more. So Penny exactly guides us during the training on who are the kind of people you can work with and what were the scripts and what were the steps and how you can go about it. And that was about the what I would call the avatar of the people or what they were going through. And to also say, what do you truly need to get started? The finance model, what does your setup need to look like? What do you truly need? So you can walk with a plain notepad and your pen, and you can walk back with an ability to set up your hypnosis practice. You don't have to overthink this. You don't feel alone in the community. Yeah. So that's the level of and I also tend to be, I am on the neurodivergent spectrum. It can become challenging for somebody like me if too much comes in. I did not get lost at all. So it
It's
works
it's
for,
it's an
yeah,
intensive, so that's saying a lot,
yeah, yeah,
because
exactly.
it is an intensive. And you know, I think it's valuable for people to see clients with the process that I teach. I was always taught that when you learn something, work to master it before you go learn something else so you don't get confused. But did you feel like you needed to go sign up for another training somewhere else?
No way, no way. And I would have touched upon it anyways. I have not felt the need to see if I needed to Google up what any other world's leading hypnotist is ever doing, or what additional toolkit is needed to supplement hypnotherapy or hypnosis to run and to bring in the transformation or get past a problem. Any client, I mean, my work is based on hypnosis now. My vehicle is hypnotherapy. So I'm and while I'm not a marketing guru yet or a sales guru yet, and I'm hunting and looking and searching, I'm sure I'll land the right one for that. But then the approach or the mechanism, and I know we take away the power when I use these words, but because it is so led, I wouldn't do anything else. I wouldn't be anything else. So I've not had the need to or the want to or desire to go see if there is anything else that I have to add to the toolkit for this, because it's always there. And the cherry on top of this is Penny's always inventing and Penny's always giving. When I say that, every next program that comes in from Penny is very creative. And hands down, I'm on because there is so much more learning and so much quicker results to the clients. And why would I look when I know in my mission to support more people to unearth their gifts? It works. So I have not had to go out and spend a dollar on this one. No.
Yeah. So if just by chance
Yes.
there were people in corporate who came across this video
Yeah.
and they're in that cycle of feeling that they're in a place that they're having to perform, they're white knuckling it to stay where they are, to get through their day, they're flirting with burnout. What would you tell them?
I got you. I got you completely. And
Yeah.
hypnosis is probably the only vehicle and that would get you past this, and that they're not alone. And they don't have to feel like it's the end of the world because that's what they experience. They think they're done. And AI isn't making life easy for anybody.
Yeah.
So they're not alone, and possibilities are way, and it's time they change their personal reality with
Yeah.
hypnosis.
So one of the questions that I get a lot, and I would like for you to answer it in your way for whoever might be listening, is people, because I talk about identity a lot.
Yeah,
And people will say to
absolutely.
me, well, do you have a training that's not based on identity? What would you say to that? How would you answer that?
The only time you didn't have an identity is if you didn't choose to be born in this world again. The minute, I think the second you choose to, and I know you would agree with that, Penny, and anybody who's listening to this is the only way I know to answer this, because the minute you're going to embrace a human form, you come in with no stories, no beliefs, no thoughts, no ideas. But once you land here, you're an open operating system for 9 years or 8 years of your life, and your beliefs and your stories are formed, and your identity gets crafted from then on. And if you need to be able to, sorry, Penny, go on,
Go,
Penny.
go ahead. Go ahead.
And you do or you don't do something because of what you are, and your identity is in the core of what you are. And the day you landed in this world to what you have become now is a series of conditioning and superimposing of thoughts and beliefs and stories and images and visions around you. If you want to change your life, you change your identity. And that's the deepest work that I have also embraced, working with Penny and working with Jim. And if you're not working at the identity level, we're working at the skin level.
So if somebody said, I just want to stop eating sweets at night.
Yeah. That's not them deciding one fine day to just stop it and be done. And I throw a habit tracker in them and that's going to be done. I wish it were that. It is not that. It invariably, it invariably gets to what was the meaning? What had caused this? It's not the eating is not because they have this affiliation to a Kit Kat or Oreo in the middle of the night. It's because they're running away from a feeling or an emotion or what they'd been dealing with. And that showing up itself as stuffing their face into a packet of Oreos in the middle of the night. And like Penny says in one of her trainings, driving in the middle of the night to a shop and stuffing her face into a box of chocolates because that's all she knew to do, because that had become her identity. And it's absolutely possible to reframe that with hypnosis, because we get to the root of the work and then we help change the meaning, and hence we change how they look at things, because the complete meaning has shifted. So they don't get into the compulsive eating behaviors that woman or any other client would have gotten into.
Yeah.
So it
Everything
is
is identity.
identity. Everything is identity.
And most people
Exactly.
don't understand that. Most
Yeah.
hypnotists don't understand that, and it's not their fault.
Yeah.
I wasn't initially taught either. I wasn't taught by either of my trainers that
I
it's
was lucky, I
that
guess.
it's identity. So, it's what I pieced together from thousands of hours of sessions from clients in that same transformational coaching program. They got referred out to me and I was able to watch, and that's a gift that I had that was divinity in action to allow me to see more than any hypnotist or therapist or psychiatrist is ever going to see in their lifetime, because you would never see a study protocol set up the way that I had the opportunity to observe people. So
Absolutely.
um yeah, that all of that is a gift. So if someone wants to connect with you, if they want to work with you, how would they find you?
So they could reach me at sangeethanagarjun.com. And I'm very active on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook as my
Okay.
socials. And I'm recrafting my, I mean, I'm recrafting the kind of products that I'm trying to bring out so that I can serve more, because I was in the sidelines. I was meeting people when
Yeah.
I could, but now I have much more time open and space open, and I'm doing it divine led. And I'm sure, I mean, you just have to hit me up at
Yeah.
sangeethanagarjunan.com. And
We'll put the
I'd,
links in the
absolutely.
description for everyone. I think that you talked about being accelerated on this path. You hit that point where you felt there was an urgency to it. It's 11:01 here as I say that there's this urgency to it. And I think that being called to do this work in a much more, well, I think the word I'm trying to reach, but with a much larger reach. We can only do so much one on one.
Absolutely.
We only have so many hours in a day, and the healer has to take care of the healer before you can heal others, because otherwise you're
Absolutely.
not doing anyone any good. So, you know, is what you learn something that's easily going to translate into that group experience? Do you believe?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think one of the only reasons I did not get into group coaching was because of my commitment of time. Because when it was one to one, it was like a 3 month tenor and an hour every week, and an hour sometimes went a little higher, and Voxer or WhatsApp support. And that's how, and then I could, if I went into group, and this was probably my limited belief, and I think I've gotten over it now. I was like, can I do it? Can't I do it? And now I'm like, it's suddenly shifted, right? And absolutely replicatable, absolutely usable. In fact, I have been in Penny's group sessions in my earlier life, and I was just meeting Penny, and it's super impactful, super impactful. And that's where I think, and after that, having a taste of it, and after that, reaching Penny for one to one, right? So because Penny was very generous with training us on something which we all learned as part of another transformational program, and Jenny and sorry, Penny offered all the help possible, more than she had to, for something around that. And this was the workshop of the mind, Penny. So, and then it was like, oh my God, so much help. And in group setting, I was marveled by it, because so much happening in a group setting. If somebody's not seen hypnosis in a group setting, you're missing out on life. Get through
Yeah.
that bare bones and test the waters, and then get into 101, and then do become a hypnotist, because all formats is possible, and I don't need to do anything extra, know anything extra. And Penny's resources talk about how you need to do it in group setting, how you need to do it in 101, how you need to do conversational, how you need to get into the full 5 path, the 7 path. So you trained in everything. You don't have to go through another training to go to group, right? So you can easily embrace all of this, and you can go spread the light quicker.
Thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate you.
My pleasure, Penny, and thank you so much for giving me this time. I mean, it's just plain joy. I'm so grateful. And anybody hearing this, watching this, I recommend very, very, with all my heart. Working with Penny has been a life-changing experience in every possible way, both to the people that I serve and I come in contact with. Because when you change, your vibration changes, you start impacting everybody around you. It doesn't just stop with your clients, it's with everybody that you meet. And Penny's been an integral part of that growth for me. So thank you so much, Penny, and thanks for the space
You're
as
welcome.
ever.
We're on the same path, soul sister, and it's true. You can just walk past someone when you're in a different state. We've all had experiences where someone walks in a room
Yeah,
and the whole
absolutely.
room shifts, and yeah, this work has that kind of impact. Thanks so much.
Um,